The word formed on the boy's pale lips with a clarity that froze Amelia Mitchell in her tracks. For an instant, the frail boy managed to utter just one word, poison, before slipping into a deep sleep. For 3 months, Michael Blackwood had remained in what was presumed to be a vegetative state, but at that moment his green eyes opened slightly, filled with a terror so raw it pierced Amelia's soul like an icy blade. The steady rhythm of the heart monitor persisted, a mechanical lie proclaiming to the world that nothing had changed in the suffocating room of the Blackwood mansion. But Amelia knew that everything had changed. In her 15 years of nursing experience, she had never witnessed anything as unsettling as the silent despair in that child's eyes. The Blackwood mansion stood like a fortress of secrets under the gray autumn sky. Its ancient stone walls harbored stories that whispered through the halls like restless ghosts. It was Amelia's first day as the family's private nurse, and each step she took on the old wooden floors felt like a warning, as though she were stepping into a place where truth was a rare and dangerous currency. The interview with Rebecca Blackwood, a week earlier, still lingered heavily in her memory. Michael's stepmother had received her in an office designed with calculated elegance, where every object seemed deliberately placed to create a specific impression. "We need someone who understands the importance of discretion," she had said, her ice-blue eyes scrutinizing Amelia with the precision of a predator sizing up its prey. "Our family values privacy?" The word hung between them like a veiled threat, slithering into the room like a serpent. Rebecca embodied controlled sophistication. Her blonde hair was always impeccably styled, and her designer clothes were chosen to project power and refinement. Yet there was something in her movements, a subtle tension, as if she were playing a role she couldn't afford to abandon for even a second. The first time Amelia met Amanda, Michael's biological mother, was like witnessing the aftermath of years of emotional erosion. In the mansion's library, surrounded by thousands of books that seemed more alive than she was, Amanda appeared to be a shadow of what she might once have been. Her hands trembled as she held a cup of cold tea, and her brown eyes, once perhaps vibrant, now resembled windows into a bottomless well of guilt and fear. "Take care of him," Amanda whispered, her voice breaking like fine porcelain. "Please?" The plea carried the weight of 1,000 untold stories, of silenced screams and hidden tears. Amelia felt her heart tighten at this raw display of maternal desperation. William Blackwood was a man who wore power like armor and guilt like an invisible chain. As the head of one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the country, he moved through the halls of the mansion like a ghost in his own castle. His interactions with his son were brief and painful to witness. He lingered in the doorway of Michael's room, as though an unseen force kept him from approaching the bed where the boy lay. During one such visit, Amelia noticed his fingers twitching, as if fighting against the urge to reach out to his son. "He was always so full of life," William murmured, more to himself than to her. "Running through these halls, laughing." His voice faltered and he quickly left the room, leaving behind the bitter scent of remorse. The accident that had left Michael in a vegetative state was detailed in the medical records with an almost artificial precision. Every fact seemed carefully chosen to construct a narrative that allowed no room for doubt. But Amelia, with years of trauma and emergency care experience, began to notice subtle inconsistencies. During her first week, she established a meticulous care routine, documenting even the smallest changes in Michael's condition. It was during these observations that she began noticing unsettling patterns. The boy's fingers moved in sequences too deliberate to be mere involuntary spasms. His eyes, which everyone believed were perpetually shut, would follow her movements across the room when no one else was watching. The discovery of the file room in the basement was purely accidental. Amelia had been searching for extra medical supplies when she found the door slightly ajar. The air inside smelled of old paper and guarded secrets. Among stacks of dusty documents, she uncovered Michael's earlier medical records, which made her stomach churn. A series of accidents and minor incidents, each carefully documented and explained, painted a sinister pattern of progression. Margaret, the housekeeper, caught Amelia leaving the file room. With her gray hair and rigid posture, she seemed like an ancient guardian of the house's secrets. "There are truths in this house," she whispered, her eyes heavy with the burden of years of silent observation, "that may cost more than you're willing to pay. But there are also those who desperately need those truths to come to light." Michael's meals were a ritual governed with military precision by Rebecca. "It's a diet specially formulated for his needs," she explained with a smile that never reached her eyes. Amelia noticed how Amanda always found an excuse to linger in the hallway during these times, her face twisted into a mask of suppressed anguish. As Amelia studied Michael's latest blood work, she began to uncover a disturbing pattern. Small fluctuations in certain elements, changes that, on their own, could be easily explained but together painted a chilling picture of deliberate, methodical poisoning. It was like witnessing a macabre symphony being orchestrated with scientific precision. The moment of revelation came on an unusually quiet night. Amelia was alone with Michael, organizing her notes, when she noticed a more pronounced movement than usual. The boy's fingers were moving in a pattern she recognized from her training in nonverbal communication. Letter by letter, he was trying to tell his story. The creak of the door interrupted that pivotal moment. Rebecca stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by the light from the hallway, like a menacing apparition. "You seem troubled, Amelia," she said, stepping into the room with the predatory grace of a panther. "Perhaps we need to discuss your future in this house." The air in the room grew suddenly dense, laden with the weight of unspoken threats. Amelia felt every muscle in her body tense, instinctively preparing for a confrontation she knew was inevitable. The heart monitor continued its monotonous rhythm, its green light blinking in the darkness like a silent promise. Somewhere, beneath all the layers of lies and manipulation, a truth was waiting to be uncovered, and a young life depended on it to survive. Amelia knew that from this night on, every moment in Blackwood Manor would be a deadly dance between uncovering the truth and staying alive long enough to save it. The night wind howled against the tall windows, casting dancing shadows across the bedroom walls. In his bed, Michael lay motionless, but his eyes, now slightly open, fixed on Amelia with a mix of fear and hope. It was a gaze heavy with months of forced silence, smothered truths and muted screams. The fight for Michael's life was only beginning, and Amelia knew she had crossed a point of no return. She was now more than a nurse. She was the only hope for a boy trapped in his own home, surrounded by a family hiding deadly secrets beneath a facade of respectability and dignity. The following morning arrived steeped in palpable tension. Amelia hadn't slept, her hands still trembling as she recalled Rebecca's piercing stare from the night before. Michael's room, once merely stifling, now felt like a gilded prison where every shadow concealed a lethal secret. The soft morning light filtered through the silk curtains, creating delicate patterns across the boy's sleeping face. As she prepared the equipment for another day of care, gently adjusting the tubes and monitors that kept Michael alive, Amelia became aware of a silent presence at the door. Amanda stood there, a fragile figure against the dark frame of the entrance. Her red, swollen eyes betrayed a sleepless night, but her posture carried something new that morning, a rising determination Amelia had never seen before. "You saw something, didn't you?" Amanda whispered, closing the door with almost painful care. Her hands trembled as they gripped the doorknob, but her voice carried an urgency that couldn't be ignored. "Something in his tests, his movements, you noticed?" The silence between them was heavy with unspoken truths, shared fears and fragile hopes. Amelia studied Amanda's face, noticing the faint lines of worry etched into her forehead, the subtle tremor in her lips, signs of a mother living in a constant state of terror. "Mrs. Blackwood," Amelia began, carefully choosing her words, "how long have you suspected?" Tears began to fall silently down Amanda's face, like rain against a closed window. "From the beginning. Every little change, every accident. I saw the signs but no one would believe me. William," her voice faltered as she said her husband's name. "He can't see it. Or maybe he doesn't want to. Rebecca has so much power over him, over everything in this house." The sunlight now fully illuminated the room, revealing specks of dust dancing in the air like tiny stars. Michael's heart monitor maintained its steady rhythm, a mechanical reminder of the fragile life that lingered within. "Michael was always such a lively boy," Amanda continued, stepping hesitantly toward her son's bed. "He loved music, you know? Played the piano, his little hands running across the keys like butterflies." Her fingers brushed gently against the blanket covering her son, a touch as soft as a prayer. "And now all I hear is this monitor day after day, ticking away like some cruel metronome." The sound of footsteps in the hallway interrupted the moment of vulnerability. Amanda quickly wiped her tears and resumed her mask of fragile composure. Margaret, the housekeeper, entered the room carrying a breakfast tray. Her sharp eyes, framed by deep wrinkles that spoke of years of guarded secrets, immediately registered the tension in the air. "Mrs. Rebecca requests your presence in the study, Miss Mitchell," Margaret announced, her voice controlled, though her eyes conveyed a silent warning. After Michael's breakfast. The breakfast ritual was a macabre choreography that Amelia was forced to endure daily. Rebecca arrived punctually as always, her high heels clicking out a precise rhythm on the wooden floor. She carried a small silver case containing what she referred to as Michael's special supplements. "You know," Rebecca remarked casually as she measured out a white powder with scientific precision, "loyalty is such a rare quality these days. Especially in employees." Her long, elegant fingers worked with the precision of a surgeon, mixing the powder into Michael's orange juice. "It would be such a shame if anything were to happen to your nursing license. Accidents happen so easily." The threat lingered in the air like poisonous smoke. Amelia kept her face neutral, years of experience in emergencies granting her the ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. "I'm just doing my job, Mrs. Blackwood. Taking care of Michael, as I was hired to do." "Of course you are." Rebecca's smile was like thin ice over deep waters, beautiful but dangerously fragile. "And I hope it stays that way. For everyone's sake." After Rebecca left, Amelia took advantage of a brief distraction from the cameras to collect a sample of the supplement. Her hands moved with the precision honed through years of hospital practice, tucking the small vial into a hidden compartment in her nursing kit. During her lunch break, the search for answers led Amelia back to the basement. Among piles of dusty documents, she discovered a folder labeled Victoria Blackwood. Its contents made her heart stop. Financial reports detailing suspicious transfers from Williams Pharmaceutical Company to offshore accounts, all coinciding with Michael's previous accidents. Margaret appeared silently, like a guardian of the house's secrets. In her hands an old diary, its pages yellowed with time. "This belonged to William's first wife," she whispered, her eyes heavy with the weight of painful memories. "Victoria was a brilliant, strong woman, until she started asking the wrong questions." The diary revealed a growing horror. Victoria had discovered that the pharmaceutical company was conducting illegal drug tests, using vulnerable patients as unwilling guinea pigs. Her last notes, written with a palpable urgency, indicated she was about to expose the entire scheme. A week later, her car went off the road in a tragic accident. When Amelia returned to Michael's room, she found the boy more agitated than usual. His fingers moved with desperate urgency, using the simple code they had developed over the past few days. The message he conveyed made her blood run cold. "She killed my mother." A sound of raised voices from William's office caught her attention. Through the slightly ajar door, fragments of a heated argument leaked into the hallway. "We can't keep going like this." William's voice sounded broken, defeated. "The tests, the deaths, this has to stop." "Don't be a fool, William," Rebecca replied with a calculated coldness. "You know very well there's no turning back. We all have too much to lose. Or have you forgotten what happened to Victoria when she tried to expose us?" Amelia's phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from her former colleague at the hospital confirming her worst suspicions. That supplement was an experimental, unapproved compound, known to cause progressive paralysis without leaving detectable traces in conventional tests. It was the perfect weapon. Slow, invisible, and deadly. The familiar sound of heels in the hallway made Amelia straighten up. Rebecca entered the room with her usual predatory grace, followed by two men in suits who radiated a veiled aura of menace. "Miss Mitchell," Rebecca smiled, her eyes cold as a winter night. "These gentlemen are from the company's board of directors. They would like to discuss some concerns regarding your professional conduct." In that moment, Amelia felt the weight of all the lives that depended on her next actions. Somewhere in the mansion, Amanda was probably crying in silence, Margaret carried the burden of years of secrets, and William was sinking deeper into his own hell of guilt and cowardice. But here in this room an innocent boy was fighting for his life. Michael was more than just a patient now. He was a symbol of all the victims silenced by greed and power. With a calm that came from the certainty of being on the right side of history, Amelia stared Rebecca in the eyes. "Of course, Mrs. Blackwood," she replied, feeling the strength of truth in her words. "I'm sure we all have much to discuss." Rebecca's office was a monument to wealth and power, its walls lined with dark wood and antique furniture that whispered stories of generations past. Amelia sat rigidly in a leather chair, facing not only Rebecca but also the two men in suits who flanked her like threatening shadows. "Miss Mitchell," Rebecca began, her voice soft as velvet hiding sharp blades, "our friends here have some concerns about your excessive curiosity." She slid a folder across the mahogany desk. "Especially regarding certain confidential company documents." Amelia's heart beat loudly against her ribs, but her voice remained steady. "My only concern is Michael's well-being." Her eyes met Rebecca's without hesitation. "As a nurse, it is my duty to ensure that he receives the best care possible." One of the men, who introduced himself as Dr. Harris, leaned forward. "We understand your dedication, Miss Mitchell. But there are ongoing experimental protocols that require absolute discretion. His smile didn't reach his cold eyes. Blackwood Pharmaceuticals has a reputation to uphold. In that moment, a memory from Victoria's diary flashed in Amelia's mind. Notes about experimental protocols that had resulted in unexplained deaths. The same term used with the same calculated coldness. Michael is not an experiment, Amelia declared, feeling a strength she hadn't known she possessed. He is a 12-year-old boy who is... She paused, choosing her next words carefully. Who needs proper care. Rebecca rose with the grace of a snake about to strike. Are you questioning my methods of caring for my stepson? Her voice carried a thread of threat that made the air in the office grow even heavier. Before Amelia could respond, the office door opened. Amanda entered, surprising everyone with a newfound strength in her posture. No, Rebecca. I am. The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda, who had long been a shadow in the mansion's corridors, now seemed to radiate with an inner light. Her hands still trembled, but her eyes held a gleam of determination Amelia had never seen before. I found this, Amanda said, placing a stack of documents on the table. Copies of the original reports of Michael's accidents? The real ones, not the altered versions you keep in the official files. Rebecca paled slightly but maintained her composure. Amanda dear, you're not well. Perhaps we should call your doctor? I'm more lucid than ever, Amanda cut in, her voice shaking with contained emotion. Margaret helped me find the files Victoria was investigating before she died. About the illegal tests, the covered-up deaths, the diverted money. Dr. Harris shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Mrs. Blackwood, I suggest we continue this discussion privately. There will be no more secrets, Amanda declared. Not while my son is suffering. In that moment, a sharp scream pierced the air, coming from Michael's room. Amelia was the first to react, running through the corridors with her heart in her throat. Upon entering the room, she found Margaret leaning over the bed, her hands trembling as she tried to stabilize the boy who was convulsing violently. He's having a reaction. Margaret screamed, her words heavy with urgency. To the breakfast supplement. Amelia went into automatic mode, her years of training kicking in. As she fought to stabilize Michael, her mind quickly processed the symptoms. Dilated pupils, intense sweating, uncontrollable tremors. Classic signs of poisoning by neurotoxic compounds. Amanda arrived in the room seconds later, followed by Rebecca and the board members. My baby, she screamed, rushing to the bed. Stay back. Amelia ordered with professional authority. Margaret, my back. There's a universal antidote in the side compartment. Rebecca took a step forward, her mask of control starting to crack. You don't have the authority to. She has my authority, a deep voice thundered from the door. William Blackwood stood there, his face a mask of fury and determination. And you, Rebecca, have a lot to explain. As Amelia administered the antidote, William approached the bed, finally looking at his son for the first time in months. I found the files on your computer, he said, his voice heavy with pain and anger. The emails about the tests, the orders to manipulate the results, the transfers to secret accounts. He turned to Rebecca. The evidence of what you did to Victoria. Rebecca's face twisted into a mask of rage. Everything I did was for the good of the company, for our future. Victoria was going to destroy everything with her foolish moralism, and Michael? She stopped, realizing too late what she had revealed. And Michael what? William asked, his voice dangerously low. What did you do to my son? He found out about the tests, Rebecca replied, her composure finally crumbling. That damn nosy kid found the files on the computer just like you. I couldn't let him destroy everything we've built. The monitors began showing signs of improvement in Michael. His eyes slowly opened, first meeting Amelia's, then his mother's. Amanda sobbed, holding her son's hand as if she would never let it go. It's over, William said, his voice heavy with finality. He gestured, and 2 police officers entered the room. The detectives would like to ask you some questions about Victoria Blackwood's death. As Rebecca was escorted out, still protesting about loyalty and necessity, Amelia felt the weight of the past few days crashing down on her shoulders. Margaret approached, placing a comforting hand on her arm. You did what Victoria couldn't, the housekeeper whispered. You brought the truth to light. Michael weakly squeezed Amelia's hand, his eyes now clear and focused. For a moment, she saw in them not only gratitude but also a glimpse of the vibrant boy he once was, and with time and care could be again. Amanda leaned over her son, tears of relief running freely down her face. It's all right now, my love. Mommy's here. No one will hurt you anymore. William stood by the door, watching the scene with a mix of shame and determination. "We have a lot to rebuild," he murmured, more to himself than to anyone else. "A lot to fix." The evening light streamed through the tall windows, bathing the room in golden hues. The heart monitor maintained its steady rhythm, but now its sound seemed different, not a countdown of fear, but a marker of second chances and new beginnings. The sunrise brought a new quality to the Blackwood mansion. The light poured through the tall windows differently now, as if the house itself was breathing more freely after Rebecca's imprisonment. Michael, still weak but determined, was beginning his journey back to life with small steps of courage that filled Amelia's heart with hope. On a particularly significant morning, as she adjusted the four in his arm, Amelia noticed a subtle change in her young patient. The color was gradually returning to his face, painting life where there had once been only pallor, and his eyes, which had long remained clouded by fear, now shone with renewed curiosity. "You knew," he whispered, his voice still raspy from prolonged disuse, "that I never lost hope?" His words, simple but profound, carried the weight of months of forced silence. "Even when Rebecca kept me trapped in my own body, I knew someone would eventually discover the truth." Amanda, who rarely left her son's side now, held his hand gently. Her own hands, once constantly trembling under the weight of fear, now moved with purpose and maternal love. She spent hours beside Michael, reading stories, sharing memories, filling the void of the lost months with small moments of connection. "He asked to play the piano today," Amanda shared with Amelia during a coffee break in the kitchen. Her words caught in her throat with emotion, but her face shone with a joy not seen in a long time. "It's the first time since everything started. For so long I thought I'd lost my son forever, not just his body but his essence, his passion for music." The kitchen, once a place of tension and constant surveillance under Rebecca's regime, was now becoming a space of healing and connection. Margaret prepared special teas and soups, old recipes that carried not only nutrition but also the comfort of long-forgotten family traditions. "Victoria loved this kitchen," Margaret commented as she chopped fresh vegetables. "She used to say it was the heart of the house, where people could truly be themselves." The housekeeper paused, a soft smile playing on her lips. "She would be proud to see how you've brought life back to this place." William was also undergoing his own transformation. The man who had once hidden in his office, fleeing the painful reality that his negligence had allowed to take root, was now facing his responsibilities with renewed determination. On a particularly significant afternoon, he brought an old photo album to Michael's room. "I found this at the bottom of a drawer," he said, sitting at the edge of his son's bed. The album, its pages yellowed with time, held memories of a happier era. "Your mother, Victoria, was obsessed with photographing every moment of you at the piano." Michael touched one particular photo. He was 5 years old, sitting at the piano, a radiant smile lighting up his young face as Victoria hugged him from behind. "She always said music was our secret language," he shared, his voice soft but firm. "When she died, playing the piano was the only way I could feel close to her." The revelation hit William like a physical blow. "And Rebecca took that from you too," he murmured, guilt heavy in his voice. "It wasn't your fault, Dad," Michael said, surprising everyone with the maturity in his words. "Rebecca fooled all of us. But now we can start over." The investigators who frequented the mansion noticed the change in the atmosphere. What had once been a fortress of secrets was now transforming into a home in the process of healing. Each new document uncovered, each testimony gathered, helped dismantle the empire of lies that Rebecca had built at Blackwood Pharmaceuticals. One evening, Amelia found William in his office, surrounded by piles of documents. The man who once seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders now had a clear purpose in his eyes. "We found 16 more cases," he said, his voice tired but determined. 16 families who lost loved ones in Rebecca's experiments. We're reaching out to each one, offering compensation of course, but more importantly, the truth they deserve." "Truth has its own healing power," Amelia replied, setting a cup of coffee on his desk. "Just like the forgiveness you need to grant yourself." The most significant moment came when Michael felt strong enough to visit the music room. The piano, covered in a thin layer of dust, awaited like an old, patient friend. Amanda and William helped him sit on the bench, his legs still weak from the long inactivity. The silence in the room was thick with anticipation. Michael placed his hands on the keys, hesitant at first, like a bird testing wings that had long been closed. Then, as if guided by a muscle memory that even Rebecca's poison hadn't been able to erase, his fingers began to move. The first notes of a familiar melody filled the air, the lullaby Victoria used to play for him every night. The music flowed through the mansion's hallways, touching every corner that had long known only silence and fear. In the kitchen, Margaret stopped her work, silent tears streaming down her wrinkled face. In the gardens, the staff paused to listen, soft smiles on their faces as the music danced through the afternoon air. Amanda covered her face with her hands, sobbing softly as she watched her son reconnect with an essential part of himself. William, standing in the doorway, seemed to breathe more freely, as if the music had the power to cleanse years of guilt and regret. Amelia watched from the entrance, her heart overflowing with conflicting emotions. Her professional mission was technically complete. Michael was recovering, the criminals would face justice, the family was beginning to heal. But something deeper had happened during those intense weeks. "A house is not a home without love," Margaret said softly, appearing at her side as she always did during the most significant moments. "And you've brought more than just medical care to this family, dear. You've brought the courage to face the truth." Michael stopped playing and turned to them, his eyes meeting Amelia's with a wisdom beyond his years. "Will you play with me?" he asked, making room on the piano bench. "Mom told me you play too." Amelia felt something warm and true expand in her chest as she moved closer to the piano. She had come to the house as a professional, prepared to face medical challenges. In the process, she had become part of a much larger story, a story of healing not just of the body but of the soul. As her fingers joined Michael's on the keys, creating a new melody together, Amelia thought of Victoria. Perhaps, somewhere, the first Mrs. Blackwood was smiling, knowing that her sacrifices had not been in vain. The truth had finally come to light, bringing with it the possibility of a new beginning for everyone. The music continued to flow through the Blackwood mansion, no longer a prison of secrets and shadows, but a place where healing had only just begun. It was a melody of hope, second chances, courage to face the truth, and strength to rebuild from the ashes of the past. And that golden afternoon, as the sun set on the horizon, the Blackwood mansion breathed with new life, filled with the promise of better days to come. The case against Rebecca revealed even darker truths than anyone could have imagined. In the courtroom, Amelia held Amanda's hand as the evidence was presented, one piece after another. Documents, emails, and testimonies painted a devastating picture of greed and cruelty that extended far beyond the walls of the Blackwood mansion. "We found records of at least 30 affected families," the prosecutor declared, his firm voice echoing through the room. 30 lives altered or lost due to the illegal experiments conducted by Blackwood Pharmaceuticals. William, sitting in the front row, kept his eyes fixed on Rebecca. His ex-wife showed no remorse, her face a mask of studied indifference as the accusations piled up. The only time her composure cracked was when Michael entered the room to testify. The boy, still in a wheelchair but visibly stronger, met his stepmother's gaze without hesitation. His voice, once silenced by the poison, now carried a strength that brought tears to the eyes of everyone present. "I saw her put something in my mother Victoria's tea that night," Michael declared, his hands gripping the arms of the chair. "She didn't know I was awake, watching through the crack in the door. The next day Mom had the car accident." A murmur swept through the courtroom. Rebecca finally showed a reaction, a slight tremor in her lips, a flash of anger in her eyes. For the first time, her mask of control began to crack. Back at the mansion, life had found a new rhythm. Michael's physical therapy became a moment of family unity. Amanda read to him during the exercises, William shared stories from his own childhood, and even Margaret joined in, bringing special snacks that made everyone smile. "You know what I missed the most?" Michael confided to Amelia during a particularly difficult session. "Running around the garden with Thor, our dog. Rebecca made him leave after Mom Victoria died. She said he was too noisy." The next morning, William surprised everyone by bringing a golden lab puppy. "His name is Jazz," he announced, placing the puppy in Michael's lap. "Margaret told me about Thor and I thought, well, every family needs a little music and joy." Michael's smile lit up the entire room. Jazz licked his face, causing a laugh, a sound so pure and true it made Amanda cry with joy. It was the first time she had heard her son laugh like that since the beginning of the nightmare. The physical therapy sessions gained a new enthusiastic participant. Jazz became Michael's biggest cheerleader, running by his side as he practiced with the walker, celebrating every small progress with joyful barks and affectionate licks. One afternoon, while watching Michael play the piano with Jazz loyally lying at his feet, Amelia found an old box at the back of the music room's closet. Inside, there were handwritten sheet music pages in Victoria's elegant handwriting. "These are her compositions," Margaret explained, her eyes shining with memories. "Victoria composed music for every special moment in the family. She had a gift for turning feelings into melodies. Michael fell silent when Amelia showed him the sheet music, his hands trembling slightly as he touched the aged paper. She was composing something new, he said softly. In the weeks before the accident. She said it was a song about truth and courage. Amanda approached her son, wrapping him in a gentle hug. Your mother was the bravest person I ever knew, she whispered. And you, my love, inherited that courage from her. William, watching from the doorway, discreetly wiped away a tear. Victoria always said that music had the power to heal souls, he commented, his voice thick with emotion. She was right as always. As the days passed, the Blackwood mansion continued its transformation. The once dark hallways were now filled with the sounds of laughter, music, and the joyful patter of Jazz chasing his ball. The heavy curtains were replaced with light fabrics that allowed sunlight to pour freely in. Margaret oversaw the changes with evident satisfaction, directing the cleaning crew with renewed energy. Victoria always wanted this house to be a place of joy, she remarked as she arranged a new bouquet of fresh flowers. We're finally honoring her wish. One night, after a particularly significant day in court, where more victims of Rebecca's experiments had testified, the family gathered in the music room. Michael, seated at the piano, began to play a melody that no one immediately recognized. It's Mom's last composition, he explained, his fingers gently dancing over the keys. I found her notes hidden inside the piano. She never finished it, so I decided to complete it. The music began soft and hesitant, like a whisper of hope amidst the darkness. Gradually, it grew in intensity and complexity, transforming into something new and powerful. It was a story told in notes and harmonies, a story of loss and pain, but also of healing and rebirth. Amanda cried silently, her tears now carrying both joy and sorrow. William held her hand, his own eyes welling with tears as he watched his son give voice to the feelings that had remained silenced for so long. Jazz, lying under the piano as always, lifted his head and let out a soft howl, as if he too could feel the emotion of the moment. The sound made everyone smile, breaking the intensity with a touch of spontaneous joy. Amelia, watching the scene, felt her heart fill with an emotion hard to name. It was more than professional satisfaction, more than joy for her patient's recovery. It was the privilege of witnessing the rebirth of a family, the healing of wounds far beyond the physical. You're no longer just a nurse to us, Amanda said later as they shared a cup of tea in the kitchen. You've become part of this family, part of this healing story. Margaret, preparing fresh cookies in the oven, nodded with a wise smile. Sometimes, she said, angels arrive wearing nurse uniforms. Outside, the sun set over the Blackwood mansion's gardens, painting the sky with colors that seemed to celebrate the triumph of light over darkness. Somewhere, Amelia believed Victoria was smiling, knowing her family had finally found its way back to music, to joy, to life. The melody of the piano continued to flow through the house, now mingled with laughter and conversation. It was the sound of healing, of love reborn, of truth finally set free. It was the sound of a family that, through pain and loss, had rediscovered its harmony. The news of Rebecca's conviction came on a golden autumn afternoon. The sky was painted in shades of amber and pink, as if nature itself were celebrating that moment of justice. Michael was in the garden with Jazz, his steps growing firmer with each victory on the path to recovery, when William appeared at the back gate. The father's face carried a complex mix of emotions, relief, sorrow, and something deeper, like a peace long sought. 30 years, he said, his voice soft but steady. No parole? Amanda, who had been tending to the rose garden that Victoria had loved so much, dropped her tools onto the grass. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were different from the ones she had shed in recent months, not tears of fear or despair, but of liberation. Michael walked toward his mother, each step a declaration of triumph over the poison that had nearly silenced him forever. Jazz followed him faithfully, a golden shadow of protection and love. When he reached Amanda, he embraced her, and the gesture spoke more than words ever could. It's over, Mom, he whispered against her hair. It's really over? From the porch, Amelia watched the scene unfold, her heart overflowing with a mixture of professional joy and personal connection. The past few weeks had transformed not just the mansion but each person living within it. The shadows that once dominated every corner were now giving way to a light that came from within. Amanda's renewed strength, Michael's unshakable courage, William's silent redemption. Margaret approached, bringing a tray of fresh lemonade and her famous ginger cookies, the favorites of Victoria. You know, she began, her voice heavy with wisdom accumulated over years of silent observation. Victoria always said there are moments that redefine everything we are. Moments when the past finally frees us to embrace the future. That night, the family gathered in the kitchen for a special dinner. It was the first time Michael had been able to sit at the table since the beginning of his recovery, a milestone worthy of celebration. Margaret had prepared lasagna following the recipe Victoria had taught her years ago, the familiar aroma bringing sweet memories to everyone. During dinner, William pulled a yellowed envelope from his jacket pocket. His hands trembled slightly. "I found this today," he said, his voice soft but clear. "In Rebecca's old office. These are letters Victoria wrote to you, Michael. Letters that never reached your hands." The silence that fell over the kitchen was heavy with expectation. Jazz, sensing the importance of the moment, rested his head on Michael's knee, offering silent comfort. The boy took the envelope with careful reverence, as if holding something precious and fragile. "Dear Michael," he began to read, his young voice carrying the weight of his late mother's words. "There are things happening at the company that worry me deeply. Things that need to come to light. If anything happens to me, I want you to know that every note we played together, every story we shared, every laugh we exchanged, everything is real and eternal. True love never dies, my son. It only changes form, finding new ways to express itself." Amanda held her son's free hand, her tears falling silently. William gazed out the kitchen window at the garden his first wife had loved so much, now revived under Amanda's dedicated care. A living symbol of how love can transcend loss and transform pain into beauty. "Victoria had that gift," Margaret commented softly, pouring another round of tea. "She could see beyond appearances, find the potential for beauty in everything and everyone. She was the one who turned this mansion from a cold house into a home full of music and life." The conversation flowed naturally, mixing memories of the past with dreams for the future. Margaret shared stories of Victoria's early days in the mansion, how she insisted on placing the piano in the living room, against all the social conventions of the time. "Aqui esta tragiceo para o Ingles. Victoria used to say that music shouldn't be locked away in formal rooms," William reminisced, a gentle smile on his lips. "She believed that music needed to be part of daily life, as natural as breathing." After dinner, everyone naturally gathered in the music room. Michael sat at the piano, his hands now stronger and more confident, carrying not only technique but also the stories and emotions accumulated on his healing journey. The melody that began to play was something new, not the unfinished music of Victoria, but a composition of his own, born from his experience of near loss and rebirth. "I'm calling this one New Beginnings," he explained, his fingers weaving a tapestry of sounds that perfectly captured the family's journey. The music started softly, hesitantly, like the early days after Amelia's arrival. Gradually, it gained complexity and tension, reflecting painful discoveries and the necessary confrontations. Finally, it blossomed into a melody of hope and renewal, like a garden blooming after a long winter. Jazz, as faithful as ever, lay under the piano, his watchful eyes following every movement of his young owner. Amanda and William sat together on the sofa, their hands intertwined, speaking of forgiveness, understanding, and the possibility of new beginnings. Margaret discreetly wiped away a tear that had escaped down her time-marked face. "Victoria would be so proud," she said softly. "Not just of the music, but of how all of you found the strength to face the truth and rebuild something even more beautiful from the wreckage." "You know what else I feel for Mom, Victoria?" Michael asked, his hands resting for a moment on the ivory keys. "Gratitude. She taught us that true love means fighting for the truth, no matter the cost. And now, finally, we can honor her sacrifice by living that truth every day." The sun was slowly setting, its last rays filtering through the tall windows of the music room, creating an almost magical moment of connection and healing. It was as if Victoria were present, her essence captured in the golden light that bathed the family she had so dearly loved and protected. "Life is made of endings and new beginnings," Amanda reflected, her voice carrying the weight of hard-earned wisdom. "Victoria gave us the bravest possible ending, she fought for the truth until her last moment. And now, we honor her memory with this new beginning, turning her struggle into our strength, her love into our guiding light." William stood and walked over to his son, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Keep playing, Michael," he softly requested. "Music has always been the voice of our family, our pain, our healing, our hope. May it continue to guide us forward, reminding us of who we are and what we can become when we choose truth and love above all else." A year had passed since Rebecca's conviction. The Blackwood mansion, once a monument to pain and secrets, now pulsed with a renewed energy. The rose garden, meticulously restored by Amanda, was bursting with colors that echoed the liveliness Victoria had so dearly loved. Each flower that bloomed seemed to tell a story of rebirth. Michael, fully recovered, sat at the piano every morning. His hands, once imprisoned by a silent poison, now danced freely across the keys, creating melodies that filled every corner of the house with promises of better days. Jazz, his faithful companion, rested in his favorite spot beneath the piano, his golden body relaxed, but his eyes always watchful of the young pianist. "The performance is tomorrow," Michael remarked to Amelia, who now made regular visits, no longer as a nurse but as an indispensable part of the family. "I'm going to playing New Beginnings for the first time in public. It's strange, but it feels like every note is a conversation with Mom, Victoria." The benefit concert had arisen from William's need to transform tragedy into something meaningful. Blackwood Pharmaceuticals, once an empire built on lies, was now dedicated to repairing the damage caused. The event would raise funds to support the families affected by the illegal experiments, a first step on the long road to redemption. Amanda entered the music room carrying an old cedar box. The soft scent of the wood mingled with a delicate fragrance that everyone instantly recognized, the favorite scent of Victoria. Inside the box, carefully preserved, was a blue silk dress. This was the dress she wore to her recitals, Amanda explained, her fingers caressing the fabric with reverence. "I found it tucked away with her favorite sheet music. I thought it would be meaningful to have it with us tomorrow, Michael. A way for her to be present." The boy touched the dress gently, as if he could feel through the delicate fabric the presence of the mother he had loved so deeply. "It's perfect," he whispered. "You know, sometimes when I play I feel like she's here, guiding my hands over the keys." The morning of the concert arrived with a special gentleness. The city's auditorium, a historic building with perfect acoustics, was filled. In the front rows, families who had lost loved ones to Rebecca's experiments sat with quiet dignity. Their faces carried stories of pain but also of hope. Margaret had transformed the venue with her special touch. Roses from Victoria's garden adorned each table, their soft fragrance creating an atmosphere of welcome. The housekeeper moved between the arrangements, adjusting a flower here, straightening a ribbon there, her hands expressing the love that words could not contain. William was the first to step onto the stage. The man facing the audience now was different from the cold businessman he had once been. His transformation was visible not only in his softer posture but in the way his eyes shone with genuine emotion. "A year ago," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion, "this family was torn apart by secrets and lies. Today we are here not only to offer help to those who were hurt but to celebrate the transformative power of truth. Each note you will hear today carries a story of loss, but also of love, courage, and rebirth." Michael positioned himself at the piano, his eyes meeting Amelia's in the front row. Beside her, Amanda held Victoria's dress folded in her lap, her hands caressing the fabric as if in a silent prayer. The first notes of rebirth floated through the auditorium. The music began softly, like the first rays of sunlight after a long night. Gradually, it grew in intensity and complexity, telling a story that everyone there knew intimately, a story of pain transformed into strength, of silence transformed into music. Amanda held Amelia's hand, silent tears marking her face. "You didn't just save his life," she whispered. "You taught us to live again, to trust, to love without fear." In the audience, unfamiliar faces united in a shared experience of healing. Families who had lost so much found in Michael's notes a promise that pain could transform into something beautiful, that love could survive even the deepest losses. Margaret, a few rows behind, smiled through her own tears. Her hands held a small notebook, the diary Victoria had kept all these years. "You did it, my dear," she murmured to her absent friend. "Your love protected them until the end." After the concert, a small group gathered in the mansion's garden. The space that had once witnessed so much suffering was now filled with laughter and lively conversation. Jazz ran among the guests, his joyful energy a constant reminder of how love can heal even the deepest wounds. William approached Michael with one last envelope. "I found this morning," he explained. "Victoria's last letter that Rebecca had hidden. I thought this would be the perfect moment for you to read it." With steady hands, Michael opened the envelope. His clear voice carried his mother's words through the silent garden. "My beloved son, if you are reading this letter, it means that the truth has finally found its way into the light. Never doubt the power of music to heal, to connect, to transform. Every note you play is a victory over the darkness, a testament to a love that not even death can silence. Remember always, you are stronger than any poison, more resilient than any lie. The music in your heart is your true legacy, Not the Blackwood name, not the fortune of the company, but your ability to transform pain into beauty. In every rose that blooms in the garden, in every melody you create, in every moment of joy you share, I am there. True love knows no limits, not even those of life and death. Keep playing, my son. Keep loving. Keep living with truth as your compass and music as your light. With eternal love. Mom****. A silence full of meaning enveloped the garden. Amanda embraced her son, and William joined them, forming a circle of protection and love that not even the shadows of the past could break. Amelia watched the scene, her heart overflowing with emotions. Her journey with the Blackwoods had started as a professional call, but had transformed into something much deeper and more meaningful. She had witnessed the power of truth to set free, of love to heal, and of music to rebuild broken souls. "You know," Margaret said, approaching with 2 cups of the special rose tea that Victoria had loved, "sometimes I think you were a gift from her to us. An angel disguised as a nurse, sent to complete the work she started." Michael approached them, his steps as sure and graceful as the notes he played. "It's not a goodbye, is it?" he asked Amelia, his eyes glowing with the same intensity she had seen on that first day, when he struggled to communicate through the poison. "Never a goodbye," Amelia smiled, feeling the warmth of the setting sun on her face. "Just a new chapter. After all, family is forever." The sun gently descended over the Blackwood garden, painting the sky with shades that resembled Victoria's roses. Jazz barked joyfully, chasing a butterfly among the fragrant flower beds. From inside the mansion, through the open windows, the soft sound of the piano flowed. Michael was already working on a new composition. The music spoke of hope, renewal, a love that transcends time and space. It was a promise for the future, a tribute to the past, a celebration of the present. It was the voice of a family that had found its way back to the light, guided by the courage of a mother, the determination of a nurse, and the tireless strength of the truth. The Blackwood mansion, once a place of shadows and secrets, now stood as a testament to the transformative power of love and courage. Each note that danced through its halls, each laugh that warmed its rooms, each moment of genuine connection was a victory over the dark past. And so, as the night gently embraced the garden, the Blackwood family continued their journey of healing and rediscovery, knowing that some endings are simply the beginning of even more beautiful stories. Dear viewers, in the comments share with us, which moment of the Blackwood journey moved you the most? Have you ever witnessed the transformative power of truth in your own life? If this story about family, courage, and redemption touched your heart, join our Life Stories community. Every like and subscription helps us continue sharing stories that celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. Remember, just as Michael discovered, sometimes our hardest stories can become our most beautiful melodies. Until our next story, Life Stories.